A quick heads up. This story explores themes of intense psychological distress, moral ambiguity, and the profound consequences of a dark secret. Listener discretion is advised. Every night it's the same. The silence of my expensive apartment, the city lights a distant blur through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and then the sound. Not a real sound, not anymore. It's a memory, a phantom echo that reverberates in the hollow chambers of my guilt. A sharp, sickening crack, followed by an even more sickening silence. The kind of silence that screams. They called it an accident. The police, the medical examiner, the local newspaper in that quiet lakeside town. A tragic, unfortunate accident. And I, Alex Miller, the grieving friend, the reliable witness, I agreed. I nodded, I choked back tears. I even managed a convincing tremor in my voice when I spoke about the unfairness of life. I played the part perfectly. But every single fiber of my being, every waking and sleeping moment since that day, has been a lie. Because it wasn't an accident. Not really. And it was absolutely, unequivocally my fault. Her name was Rachel Hayes. And she was brilliant, fiercely intelligent, relentlessly curious, and with a moral compass that pointed due north, no matter the storm. A compass that, tragically, pointed directly at me. We'd known each other since college, a bond forged in late-night study sessions and shared dreams of making our mark on the world. She went into investigative journalism. I went into corporate finance. Two paths seemingly divergent, yet destined to collide in the most catastrophic way imaginable. She had called me that Tuesday, her voice tight, strained, unlike the usual playful lilt I remembered. "Alex," she'd said, "we need to talk. In person. Soon." The urgency in her tone sent a cold dread slithering down my spine. I knew instinctively what this was about. Rachel wasn't one for small talk when she sounded like that. She was on the scent of something, and I had a terrifying suspicion that something was me. I tried to deflect, to postpone, to offer excuses. "I'm swamped, Rach. Huge deal closing. Can it wait?" "No," she'd cut me off, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "It can't. I'm coming up to the lake house this weekend. You need to be there. Friday evening. Alone. The lake house. My family's old retreat, nestled deep in the Adirondacks. Secluded, private, surrounded by towering pines and the glassy surface of Lake Serenity. A place I'd always associated with peace, with escape. Now the thought of it sent a shiver of pure terror through me. Rachel knew. She had to. I spent the rest of that week in a fog, going through the motions at work, my mind a frantic maelstrom of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. I had built an empire, or at least a very comfortable kingdom, on a foundation of meticulously crafted half-truths and strategic omissions. A few carefully placed investments, a little insider knowledge here, a subtle manipulation of figures there. Nothing that would raise red flags with the SEC, I told myself. Nothing obvious. But Rachel had a way of seeing through the veneer. She had an almost preternatural ability to connect the dots that others dismissed as random specks. That Friday evening, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and oranges, I drove up the winding, unpaved road to the lake house. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. A perfect, tranquil evening, utterly at odds with the tempest raging inside me. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. Rachel was already there when I arrived, standing on the sprawling wooden deck that overlooked the lake, a glass of water in her hand. Her silhouette was stark against the fading light. She turned as I stepped out of the car, her expression unreadable. No smile, no familiar greeting. Just a steady, unwavering gaze that felt like it was stripping away my very soul. "Alex," she said, her voice calm, almost unnervingly so. "Thanks for coming." I tried to force a casualness I didn't feel. "Of course, Rach. What's so urgent you dragged me all the way out here?" I tried a small, nervous laugh. It sounded hollow even to my own ears. She didn't reciprocate. She just gestured to the deck chairs. "Sit." We sat in silence for a long moment, the only sounds the chirping of crickets and the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. The tension was thick, suffocating. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. Finally she spoke, her voice low, methodical. "I've been working on a story, Alex, about a rising star in corporate finance. Someone who seems to have an uncanny knack for predicting market shifts, for always being one step ahead." My throat tightened. "Sounds like a good story," I managed, trying to keep my voice even. "Lots of people have a knack, Rachel. It's called skill. She shook her head slowly, her eyes still fixed on mine. No, Alex. This isn't skill. This is something else. I've been digging into the financials of Sterling Global, specifically their acquisition of Biogenics last year, and then the subsequent sell-off. The timing of your trades, Alex. The sheer precision. It's beyond uncanny. It's statistically impossible. My heart hammered against my ribs. Sterling Global, Biogenics. These were the crown jewels of my illicit activities, the biggest scores, the ones that had cemented my reputation, bought me this apartment, the car, the life I now led, the ones that, if exposed, would bring everything crashing down. My career, my reputation, potentially years in prison. Rachel, I don't know what you're talking about. I lied, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. I made some good calls. That's it. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder, placing it on the small table between us. The manila folder seemed to glow with an ominous light in the dimming twilight. I have emails, Alex. Internal memos, and a confidential whistleblower report from a former Sterling Global analyst. It all points to you, to a pattern of behavior that goes far beyond good calls. Her voice hardened. It points to insider trading, Alex, to market manipulation, to fraud. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My carefully constructed life, the one I had sacrificed so much for, was teetering on the edge of a precipice. Rachel, with her unwavering integrity, was about to push it over. You can't do this, Rachel, I pleaded, my voice hoarse. Think about what this would do. To me, to my family. Everything I've built. Think about what you've done, Alex, she countered, her gaze unwavering. Think about the people you've defrauded, the trust you've broken. This isn't about you anymore. This is about truth. About justice. A cold, desperate panic seized me. I looked at the folder, at her resolute face, at the vast, indifferent lake stretching out behind her. There had to be a way to make her see reason, a way to make her stop. Rachel, please, I begged, my voice cracking. Just listen to me. We can work this out. I can explain. I can make it right. Just don't go public with this. Not yet. She shook her head. A look of profound disappointment etched on her face. There's nothing to explain, Alex. And there's no making it right after the fact. This story is going live Monday morning. I've already submitted it to my editor. They're just waiting for my final confirmation. Monday morning. 3 days. 3 days until my entire world imploded. 3 days until everything I had ever worked for, everything I had ever been, was reduced to scandal and ruin. A frantic, desperate energy surged through me. My mind raced, searching for an escape hatch, any way out of this impossible corner. I stood up, pacing the deck, my hands running through my hair. You don't understand the implications, Rachel, I exclaimed, my voice rising. This isn't just a story. This is my life. She stood up too, facing me, her expression a mixture of sadness and resolve. And this is my job, Alex. My integrity. Something you seem to have forgotten the meaning of. Her words, sharp and cutting, felt like a physical blow. The shame, the fear, the absolute terror of exposure, all coalesced into a blinding rage. A red mist seemed to descend over my vision. I looked at her, standing there, so righteous, so unyielding, blocking my path, destroying me. The deck railing was old, weathered. The drop to the rocky shore below was steep, maybe 20 feet. The lake was dark and cold. You can't, I whispered, the words barely audible. You can't do this to me. I have to, Alex, she replied, her voice firm. It's already done. And that's when it happened. Not a push, not a deliberate shove, but something far more convoluted, far more terrifying in its implication. Something that has haunted me every single night since. Something that the police, the medical examiner, the world will never know. I took a step towards her, my hand reaching out, not to harm, but to plead, to grasp, to stop her, to silence her. My desperation, my panic, it was a tangible force. She recoiled, startled by my sudden movement, by the raw animal fear in my eyes. She stumbled backward, her heel catching on an uneven plank of the old deck. Her arms flailed, her eyes wide with shock. A gasp escaped her lips. And then she was gone. Over the railing. A sickening crack. And then the silence. The screaming silence that replays in my head, over and over again. They ruled it an accident. A tragic fall. The old railing, weakened by years of exposure, had given way. My testimony, tearful and convincing, spoke of a casual conversation, a sudden stumble, a horrific accident I was powerless to prevent. I grieved, I mourned, and I lied, but I know the truth. I know that my desperate lunge, my terror-fueled attempt to stop her, to silence her, to save myself, had caused her to stumble. I know that my secret, my fraud, my greed, it had pushed her over that edge. Rachel Hayes didn't just fall. She was driven to it. By me. And now every shadow holds a whisper. Every unfamiliar car on my street sends a jolt of ice through my veins. Because even though the world believes it was an accident, even though I'm free, unburdened by legal consequences, I know. And the greatest fear isn't just being found out by a detective, or by Rachel's determined colleagues. It's the chilling certainty that someone else knows. Someone who saw something. Someone who wasn't fooled. Someone who is waiting. And they're getting closer. The chilling certainty that someone else knows. Someone who saw something. Someone who wasn't fooled. Someone who is waiting. And they're getting closer. The memory of that night, even months later, still feels like a fresh wound, festering beneath my skin. It replays in my mind on an endless loop, each detail sharper, more horrifying than the last. The wind whipping around the unfinished shell of the new downtown skyscraper, the metallic tang of rain on the air, the desperate clutch of Rachel's hand as she teetered on the edge. It was almost midnight. We were the only two left on the 32nd floor, arguing as we often did about the project. Rachel, with her meticulous eye and unwavering conviction, had discovered a structural flaw in the latest blueprint revisions. A flaw that, if exposed, would have cost the firm millions and ruined my career. I was responsible for those revisions. It wasn't malice, not exactly. It was a careless oversight, a cut corner that had come back to haunt me. But Rachel, bless her relentless integrity, wasn't going to let it slide. "This isn't just a mistake, Michael," she'd said, her voice tight with fury, the rain plastering strands of hair to her face. "This is gross negligence. It's dangerous. People could die." "No one's going to die, Rachel." I'd snapped back, my own desperation boiling over. "It's fixable. I can bury it. We can adjust the next phase, reroute the load-bearing walls. No one ever has to know." We stood by the temporary barrier, a flimsy chain-link fence meant to mark the perimeter of the unfinished floor. Below us, the city lights blurred into a distant, sparkling grid. The argument escalated, a cacophony of accusations and pleas. I remember the exact moment my control snapped. She threatened to go to the senior partners, to expose my incompetence, to dismantle the carefully constructed future I'd envisioned for myself. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. I reached out, not to push her, not consciously, but to grab her arm, to stop her, to silence her. My hand connected with her shoulder, and she stumbled, her feet sliding on the slick concrete. The chain-link fence, already compromised by construction, gave way under her weight. Her scream was cut short by the wind, a raw primal sound that haunts my nightmares. I saw her eyes wide with terror, in the split second before she vanished over the edge. I stood there, frozen, the sound of my own ragged breathing deafening in the sudden silence. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of guilt and terror. Below, a distant, sickening thud. The first thing I did was check the floor. No security cameras on this unfinished level. No witnesses. Just me and the gaping hole in the flimsy fence. My mind, usually a chaotic mess, became terrifyingly clear. I had to make it look like an accident. A tragic fall, perhaps due to the weather or her own carelessness. I meticulously wiped down the railing, removing any trace of my fingerprints. I adjusted the broken fence, making it seem like it had simply given way, rather than being impacted by a struggle. I fabricated a story in my head. Rachel had been working late, admiring the view, and lost her footing. It was plausible. It had to be. When the police arrived, led by Detective David Miller, a man whose weary eyes seemed to see too much, I played the part of the shocked, grieving colleague. My voice trembled convincingly as I recounted my fabricated tale, describing how I'd found her, how I'd screamed for help, how I'd been too late. Detective Miller nodded, his gaze unwavering, taking in my bloodshot eyes and the tremor in my hands. He asked about our relationship, about the project, about why we were working so late. Each answer I gave was a thread in the elaborate tapestry of lies I was weaving. He seemed to accept it, or at least he had no evidence to suggest otherwise. The official report cited accidental death, due to hazardous site conditions and inclement weather. The firm, eager to avoid a scandal, quickly swept everything under the rug, paying off Rachel's family and implementing new safety protocols. For a brief, terrifying moment, I thought I was in the clear. The nightmares were constant, the guilt a suffocating blanket, but I was free. No one knew. Then came the first sign. It was almost 2 weeks after the funeral. I was back at work, trying to project an image of stoic professionalism. My desk, usually a controlled chaos of blueprints and coffee cups, was meticulously organized. But that morning, tucked under my keyboard, was a small, unassuming note. It wasn't typed or printed. It was handwritten in neat, almost elegant script. The view from the 32nd floor is breathtaking. Isn't it? My blood ran cold. The 32nd floor. No one knew Rachel and I were up there that night. Not officially. Not even Detective Miller. My fabricated story was that I found her body on the ground, not that I was up on the 32nd floor with her when she fell. Only I knew I had been on that floor. And whoever wrote that note. My gaze darted around the office. Everyone was engrossed in their work, the low hum of conversations and keyboards filling the air. Jessica Hayes, Rachel's closest friend and a fellow architect, sat at her desk just a few feet away, her brow furrowed in concentration. Jessica had been inconsolable since Rachel's death, openly grieving and subtly, persistently questioning the accident narrative to anyone who would listen. Her eyes, usually warm and bright, now held a haunted, suspicious glint whenever they met mine. Could it be her? She knew Rachel's habits, our late-night arguments. But this note, it felt too deliberate, too calculated for Jessica's raw, open pain. I crumpled the note in my hand, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. My initial relief had been a mirage, a cruel trick of my own desperate mind. Someone did know. Someone had seen, or heard, or deduced. Over the next few days, the subtle torment continued. It wasn't overt threats, nothing I could report to the police. It was far more insidious, designed to chip away at my sanity, to remind me that I was being watched. I started finding small, seemingly innocuous items on my desk. A miniature plastic crane, the kind you'd get in a kid's toy set, placed perfectly on top of my monitor. A single, damp, mud-stained work boot print etched into the dust on my driver's side floor mat, even though I just had my car detailed. A specific page in a construction safety manual, folded back to a chapter on perimeter guarding and fall protection. Each one a whisper, a nudge, a silent accusation. My paranoia began to consume me. I started checking my apartment locks multiple times before bed, peering through the peephole before opening the door. I began to scrutinize every face in the office, searching for a flicker of recognition, a knowing glance, a smirk that would betray the watcher. Was it Thomas, the quiet IT guy who always seemed to be observing? Or maybe even old Mr. Henderson from accounting, who always walked home past the construction site? One evening, as I was leaving work late, the streetlights casting long, distorted shadows, I saw a figure standing across the street, partially obscured by a bus stop. They were just standing there, facing the office building, not moving. My breath hitched. It was too dark to make out details, but the silhouette felt familiar, like someone I knew but couldn't quite place. I quickened my pace, my heart racing, not daring to look back. When I finally reached my car, fumbling with the keys, I glanced in my rearview mirror. The figure was gone. The fear was no longer a dull ache, it was a screaming siren in my head. This wasn't just about avoiding a detective or disgruntled colleagues anymore. This was a personal vendetta, a calculated psychological assault. Whoever this person was, they weren't interested in simply exposing me. They wanted to punish me, to make me live with the terror they were inflicting. I started reviewing every interaction I'd had on the night of Rachel's death. Who could have seen us? Who even knew we were up there? The site was supposedly empty. Security patrols were notoriously lax after 10 p.m., but someone had been there. Someone had witnessed the crucial moments that led to Rachel's fall. My mind replayed the argument, the struggle, Rachel's final terrified gasp. I remembered a faint, almost imperceptible metallic clang from a lower floor, just moments before she went over. I dismissed it at the time, attributing it to the wind or the settling of the building. But now it felt significant, a sound that might have marked someone else's presence. I knew I needed to find this person before they found me, before they decided to escalate their game from psychological torture to something far more definitive, because I had a horrible creeping suspicion that they weren't just playing around. They were tightening the noose slowly, deliberately. And the next move wouldn't be a cryptic note or a toy crane. It would be something that would shatter my carefully constructed lie, and with it my entire life. I was trapped in a terrifying game of cat and mouse, and I had no idea who the cat was, or what their ultimate plan entailed. All I knew was that the hunter was closing in, and I was running out of places to hide. The feeling was like a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, stealing my breath. Every shadow seemed to lengthen, every sound amplified into a threat. The world, once a familiar landscape, had morphed into a hostile maze, and I was the terrified mouse caught in its intricate trap. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Each night a battle against the creeping dread that whispered my name from the darkest corners of my mind. My phone, once a connection to the outside world, was now a harbinger of terror. Its silent presence on the nightstand, a constant reminder of the unseen eyes watching me. The first hint of this new, terrifying phase wasn't a text, but a subtle shift in my environment. I'd always been meticulous about my apartment. One morning I noticed a detail out of place. A book on my coffee table, one I'd been reading, was open to a different page than where I'd left it. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew with a chilling certainty that seeped into my bones that I hadn't done it. My apartment, my sanctuary, had been breached. The hunter wasn't just observing, they were entering. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. I tore through my small space, checking windows, doors, even the hidden nooks I rarely used. Nothing was broken, no signs of forced entry. It was as if a ghost had slipped in, left its mark, and vanished. Or worse, someone I knew, someone who had a key. The thought sent a fresh wave of paranoia through me. Who had access? Only a handful of people. My landlord, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet elderly woman who lived downstairs, my ex-girlfriend Emily, though we hadn't spoken in months, and Daniel, my closest friend, who I trusted with my life. But could I really? The insidious doubt began to poison every relationship. The next message arrived 2 days later, not on my phone but taped to my car windshield. It was a single grainy photograph. A photograph of me, taken from a distance, standing by my kitchen window drinking coffee. My stomach lurched. The photo was recent, no more than a day or two old. It was proof. Irrefutable, terrifying proof that they were always watching. Below the photo, scrawled in block letters, were 2 words. Still lying. The world spun. My hands trembled as I tore the photo from the glass, crumpling it into a tight ball. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a desperate need to run, to scream, to confront this unseen tormentor. But who? And where? I was blind, deaf, and utterly exposed. The lie, the terrible secret about Kevin's death, was no longer just a burden on my conscience. It was a weapon pointed directly at my throat. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone saw me, snapped a picture, and it was all a sick joke. But the words, still lying, cut too deep. They knew, or they thought they knew. Either way, my life was unraveling. I went to work that day in a daze, every face in the office a potential mask for my tormentor. My colleague, Jessica, a normally bubbly woman with an infectious laugh, seemed to eye me strangely. Or was it just my paranoia twisting her innocent glance? She approached my desk later that morning, a hesitant smile on her face. "Hey, Michael," she said, her voice softer than usual. "You seem a little off today. Everything okay?" I forced a smile, trying to appear normal. "Just a rough night. Didn't sleep well." "Oh," she replied, her eyes lingering on mine a moment too long. "You know, I was thinking about that accident a few months back. With Kevin. It was so sudden, wasn't it? Everyone was so shocked." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. Why was she bringing this up now? Was this a test? Did she know something? "Yeah, it was terrible," I managed, trying to keep my voice even. "Still feels surreal." Jessica nodded slowly. "It really does. You were pretty close with him, right? I remember you two always grabbing lunch." My mind raced. Was she fishing for information? Or was she genuinely concerned? I couldn't tell. "We were colleagues," I said, choosing my words carefully. "We got along well." Right, she said, then hesitated. "It's just, I heard some whispers. You know how people talk in an office. About how it happened." My heart hammered. This was it. She knew, or she thought she knew. My face must have betrayed my inner turmoil, because Jessica's expression shifted, a flicker of concern mixed with something else I couldn't quite decipher. "Whispers?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper itself. "Oh, just nonsense probably," she quickly added, seeing my distress. "People just speculating, you know? Was he pushed? Did he slip? Just the usual morbid curiosity. I shouldn't have brought it up. I'm sorry, Michael. I was just worried about you." She offered a sympathetic smile, but it felt hollow like a performance. Was she trying to gauge my reaction? Was she part of it? Or was she simply an unwitting pawn, spreading the very rumors my tormentor wanted to amplify? I mumbled something about being fine and she eventually walked away, but the interaction left me shaken to my core. The walls were closing in, and the whispers were growing louder. That evening, I decided I couldn't live like this anymore. I needed to fight back to find out who was doing this. I started with the obvious, my phone. I checked every setting, every app, looking for anything out of place. Nothing. I contacted my service provider, explaining I was receiving anonymous threats, but they could only offer generic advice about blocking numbers and reporting to the police. The police? The very thought sent a shiver down my spine. How could I go to them when the truth I was hiding was the very thing they would be investigating? My lie was a cage, and I was rattling its bars from the inside. I then turned to my computer, searching for any digital footprint Kevin might have left, anything that could point to someone with a grudge, someone who might want to exploit his death. Kevin had been a private person, almost meticulously so. His social media was sparse, his online presence minimal. It seemed like a dead end. But then I remembered something. Kevin had been obsessed with a particular online forum, a niche community dedicated to vintage arcade games. He spent hours there, under a username I vaguely recalled, Pixel_Profit. I found the forum, an archaic-looking site brimming with obscure discussions and passionate collectors. I searched for Pixel_Profit and found his profile. It was active even after his death. Someone had been logging in. My blood ran cold. I scrolled through his recent posts. Most were about game mechanics or trading tips, but then I saw it. A thread started just a few weeks before Kevin's death, titled, "Betrayal in the High Score Hall." My fingers trembled as I clicked on it. The first post by Pixel_Profit read, "Been working on a project with someone I thought was a friend. Turns out they're not just trying to take credit for my work, they're actively trying to sabotage me. This isn't just about games anymore. This is about everything." A cold dread washed over me. What project? What sabotage? Kevin had never mentioned anything like this. I scrolled further. Other users chimed in with sympathy, offering advice. Then, another post from Pixel_Profit. A few days later, "The stakes are getting higher." I confronted them. They denied everything, of course, said I was paranoid. But I know what I saw. I have proof. And if anything happens to me, you'll know why. My breath hitched. Proof? Of what? And who was them? Could this be connected to his death? And to my current torment? I felt a sickening lurch in my stomach. Kevin had been in trouble, serious trouble, and I hadn't even known. My guilt, already a monstrous shadow, grew even larger. I continued reading, desperate for clues. The thread went silent after that last post from Kevin. No more Pixel_Profit. Just a chilling finality. But someone else had posted in the thread after Kevin's death. A user with the handle truth_seeker_77. Their post, dated a week after Kevin's accident, simply said, "Justice will be served. The truth always comes out." My eyes widened. Truth_77. This had to be them. The hunter. The person sending me messages. They knew about Kevin's online life, about this betrayal. But what did it mean? What project was Kevin talking about? And how was I involved in this betrayal? I stared at the screen, 1,000 questions swirling in my head. This wasn't just about the lie I told to cover my involvement in Kevin's accidental fall. This was bigger. Kevin had enemies, and one of them, Truth_Seeker_77, believed I was somehow complicit in whatever injustice Kevin had faced. I needed to find out who Truth_Seeker_77 was. I tried to view their profile, but it was locked, showing only a creation date and no other public activity. A dead end. But the forum itself, it was a community. Someone there might know who Truth_Seeker_77 was, or who Kevin's friend was. As I pondered my next move, my phone buzzed. A new message. I flinched, almost dropping the device. It was from an unknown number, just like the others. I opened it, my heart pounding in my ears. The message contained a single line of text. I know what you did to Kevin's project. You thought you could bury it just like you buried him. My blood ran cold. Kevin's project. The forum. They knew I was looking. They were watching my digital footsteps too. And they were getting closer. The hunter wasn't just a shadowy figure. They were a technologically savvy ghost, haunting my every move, both online and offline. The game of cat and mouse had just taken a terrifying turn, and I realized with a sickening certainty that I wasn't just running from the truth about Kevin's death, but from a much deeper, far more dangerous secret that I was only just beginning to uncover. My carefully constructed world was not just crumbling, it was being meticulously dismantled piece by agonizing piece, and I was powerless to stop it. That bitter realization that my guilt over Sarah's death was merely a curtain drawn over something far more sinister ignited a cold, hard resolve within me. Powerless? No, I wouldn't be. Not anymore. If my world was being dismantled, then I would tear it apart myself piece by piece until I found the hands responsible. The police had closed the case, satisfied with their narrative of a tragic accident, a moment of carelessness. But they hadn't seen the subtle, chilling inconsistencies I had. They hadn't felt the gnawing certainty that something was profoundly wrong. My first step was to re-enter Sarah's life, not as a mourner, but as an investigator. Her apartment, sealed for a week after the initial police sweep, had been released back to her family. Her older sister, Brenda, a kind but utterly overwhelmed woman, was slowly going through Sarah's belongings, preparing to pack them away. I offered to help, feigning an overwhelming need to be useful, to honor Sarah's memory. Brenda, grateful for any assistance, readily agreed. The apartment felt eerily still, a mausoleum of a life abruptly ended. Sarah's scent, a mix of lavender and old books, still lingered faintly in the air. I moved through the rooms with a practiced nonchalance, helping Brenda sort through clothes, books, and trinkets, all while my eyes scanned, searched, and dissected every detail. The police had taken what they deemed relevant: her laptop, her phone, her diary. But I knew better. Secrets weren't always kept in plain sight or in digital files. They hid in the periphery, in the overlooked, in the things that seemed insignificant to an outsider. I meticulously examined her bookshelf, not for titles, but for the way the books were arranged, for anything out of place. I felt along the underside of drawers, checked behind picture frames, even tapped lightly on the walls, listening for hollow sounds. Brenda, meanwhile, was weeping softly over a box of old photographs, completely oblivious to my covert operation. My heart ached for her, for the genuine grief she felt, a stark contrast to my own calculated mission. It was in her small, cluttered home office, amongst stacks of art supplies and half-finished canvases, that I found it, tucked away in a forgotten corner of a bottom drawer. Beneath a pile of dried-up paint tubes and old sketchbooks was a small, unassuming wooden box. It was a simple, unadorned box, the kind you might find at a craft store. But it was locked, and there was no key in sight. My pulse quickened. This wasn't something Sarah would normally keep locked. She was an open book, almost to a fault. Whatever was in here, she wanted it hidden. I discreetly slipped the box into my backpack, my heart hammering against my ribs. Brenda was still in the living room, lost in her memories. I knew I had to get out of there before she noticed anything missing. I made my excuses shortly after, promising to return the next day. Back in the solitude of my own apartment, the wooden box sat on my desk, a silent challenge. I tried prying it open, but the lock was sturdy. I considered breaking it, but something held me back. I wanted to see if Sarah had left a clue, a secret way in. I ran my fingers over its smooth surface, searching for any indentation, any hidden mechanism. Nothing. Then I remembered something Sarah had once told me, a frivolous detail I dismissed at the time. She had a strange fondness for old riddles and puzzles, a hobby she'd picked up from her eccentric grandmother. The simplest locks, she'd said once, are often opened by the most obvious keys, if only you know where to look for them. I thought about her, her quirks, her habits. She always had a specific way of doing things. I picked up the box again, feeling its weight, its texture. It wasn't just a container, it was a puzzle. I noticed a faint, almost imperceptible scratch near the lock mechanism. It looked like a tiny cipher, a series of 3 dots and a dash. My mind immediately went to Morse code. But what could it mean? And what was the key? I spent hours lost in a fog of desperation and adrenaline, trying various combinations, tapping different rhythms on the box, holding it up to the light. Nothing. Frustration began to set in, a cold dread washing over me. Had I found a dead end? Then a flicker of memory. Sarah's grandmother, the one who loved riddles, had a unique way of signing her letters. Not with her full name, but with a single symbolic initial. Her name was Evelyn, and her initial E in Morse code was a single dot. My eyes darted back to the box. 3 dots and a dash. What if it wasn't a code for the box but a clue about the key? 3 dots and a dash. The letter S, Sarah. Could it be that simple? A key related to her own name? I thought of all the keys Sarah had. Her apartment key, her car key, her office key. None of them seemed right. They were too common, too obvious. This box felt personal, intimate. And then it hit me. Her necklace. The delicate silver chain she always wore, with a tiny, intricately carved silver S pendant. She never took it off. It was a gift from her grandmother. It had a small, almost invisible clasp on the side. What if that wasn't just a clasp? I remembered seeing the necklace on her dresser the last time I was at her apartment. Brenda hadn't packed it yet. It was still there, a poignant reminder of Sarah's presence. I had to go back. The next morning, I returned to Sarah's apartment, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and fear. I fabricated another excuse about helping Brenda with some heavy boxes. When Brenda was momentarily distracted, I slipped into Sarah's bedroom. There, on her antique vanity, lay the silver pendant. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The clasp was indeed more than just a clasp. It was a miniature, almost imperceptible key, designed to look like part of the pendant's intricate carving. Back in my apartment with the pendant key in hand, I approached the wooden box. My breath hitched in my throat as I inserted the tiny key into the lock. Clicked softly, almost imperceptibly. The box was open. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, wasn't jewelry or money, but a single old-fashioned flip phone and a small leather-bound journal. No SIM card in the phone. The journal was thin, its pages filled with Sarah's familiar, elegant handwriting, but the content was anything but familiar. It was a meticulously kept record, not of daily events or personal thoughts, but of dates, times, names, and cryptic codes. The first entry that caught my eye was dated 6 months ago. It read, "Meeting with the collective. Topic: Project Chimera. Concerns about ethical boundaries and potential exposure." The collective. Project Chimera. The word sent a chill down my spine. This was far beyond an accidental death. This was a conspiracy. I flipped through the journal, my eyes scanning for any recognizable names. I found one: Mark Jensen. He was a senior researcher at the same pharmaceutical company where Sarah and I had both worked. A brilliant but notoriously private man, Mark had always seemed detached, almost cold. He and Sarah had collaborated on several projects, but I'd never suspected anything more than professional interaction. Yet, here he was, listed multiple times in Sarah's secret journal, always in conjunction with the collective and Project Chimera. My mind raced. What was Project Chimera? And what ethical boundaries was Sarah so concerned about? Was Mark involved in something illicit, something dangerous? And if so, how deeply was Sarah entangled? The journal entries grew increasingly urgent, detailing secret meetings, hushed conversations, and Sarah's growing unease. She wrote about feeling watched, about subtle threats, about a growing fear for her safety. The last entry, dated just 2 days before her death, was stark. "They know I've been asking questions. I found the discrepancy. It's bigger than I ever imagined. If anything happens to me, look for the S key. Tell David everything." My blood ran cold. Tell David everything. She had known. She had known they were coming for her. And she had left this for me. My accidental involvement in her death was no accident at all. I was part of her contingency plan. A pawn in a game I didn't even know was being played. The flip phone was next. It was old, a relic. I charged it, my hands clammy. When it powered on, there were only 3 numbers stored. A generic emergency contact, a number labeled Evelyn, her grandmother, and a third, unknown number simply marked L. There were no call logs, no messages. It had been wiped clean save for those 3 contacts. I tried the L number first. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. A woman's voice, calm and clear, answered, "You've reached the office of Dr. Lena Petrov. Please leave a message." Lena Petrov? I knew that name. She was a renowned geneticist, a brilliant but controversial figure in the scientific community. known for her groundbreaking work in gene editing, work that often pushed against the very ethical boundaries Sarah had mentioned. My mind reeled. The pieces were starting to connect, forming a terrifying mosaic. Sarah wasn't just a researcher. She was an informant, perhaps even a whistleblower, and she had stumbled upon something truly monstrous. My initial guilt over her death began to transform into a burning rage, a fierce determination to uncover the truth. They had silenced Sarah, but they hadn't accounted for her foresight. They hadn't accounted for me. I was no longer just grieving, I was hunting. And the first name on my list was Mark Jensen. I had to find out what he knew, what he was truly involved in. This was no longer just about Sarah. It was about exposing the collective, Project Chimera, and the dangerous secrets that had cost Sarah her life. My carefully constructed world was not just crumbling, it was being meticulously dismantled piece by agonizing piece, and I was powerless to stop it, but I could fight back. And I would. The numbness that had encased me for months shattered, replaced by a cold, burning rage. Powerless? No, not anymore. I had been a bystander, a mourner, a guilt-ridden shadow. But now, with the name Chimera echoing in my mind like a death knell, I was a hunter. Sarah wasn't just gone, she had been taken. And I was going to find out by whom and why. The fight started now. My first thought was Sarah's apartment. I hadn't been back since the initial agonizing clear-out, where I'd mostly just packed boxes of her clothes and books, too overwhelmed to truly scrutinize anything. Now, I needed to go back, not as a grieving partner but as a detective. I needed to look for what I'd missed, for the clues Sarah might have left behind, hidden in plain sight. The key still hung on my keychain, a painful reminder of a life shared. The stale air in her apartment hit me first, a scent of dust and absence. The furniture was still covered in white sheets, ghostly figures in the dim light. I pulled them off one by one, revealing the familiar, yet now alien objects of her life. Her desk, usually a whirlwind of papers and tech gadgets, was eerily sparse. The police had taken what they deemed relevant, mostly her work laptop and phone. But I knew Sarah. She was meticulous, but also fiercely private about certain things. If there was a secret, she wouldn't have left it on her main computer. I started systematically, room by room, drawer by drawer. I wasn't looking for a note explicitly naming Chimera, though a part of me desperately hoped for something so clear. I was looking for anomalies, for things out of place, for anything that didn't fit the narrative of a brilliant, passionate scientist. I checked her favorite books, running my fingers along the spines, feeling for anything tucked between the pages. Nothing. I went through her old purses, her jewelry box, even her kitchen cupboards. Still nothing. The silence in the apartment pressed in on me, mocking my desperate search. Hours turned into an eternity. My hands were grimy, my eyes strained, but I refused to give up. I moved to her bedroom, the most personal space. Her nightstand, her dresser. It was there, in the bottom drawer of her dresser, beneath a stack of old worn t-shirts, that I found it. Not a note, not a device, but an old leather-bound journal. It was small, discreet, and looked more like a personal diary than anything work-related. I hadn't seen it before, or at least, hadn't registered its significance during the initial haze of grief. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pulled it out. The leather was soft, worn smooth from handling. I opened it, my fingers trembling. The first few pages were mundane, filled with observations about her day, small personal reflections, dreams, typical diary entries. But then, about a third of the way through, the entries shifted. The handwriting, usually flowing and elegant, became tighter, almost frantic at times. Dates were less consistent, and the names, they weren't personal. They were code. Project Nightingale Progress Report. Alpha 7 Anomalies. Concerned about data integrity on Project Chimera. Chimera. There it was again, stark and terrifying, in Sarah's own hand. But these weren't just random mentions. These were veiled concerns, veiled warnings. She wrote about ethical boundaries being pushed, about unforeseen consequences, and about a growing sense of unease within the team. She never explicitly stated what Chimera was or what it did, but the tone of her entries painted a picture of something incredibly sensitive, potentially dangerous, and certainly not what it seemed on the surface. Then an entry from just a few weeks before her death caught my eye. Met with Emily today. She's worried too. Says she's seen things that don't add up. We need to talk more, but carefully. They're watching, I'm sure of it. Emily. A name. A lead. I remembered Sarah mentioning an Emily once or twice, a colleague from her research group, someone she occasionally had lunch with. Sarah had been tight-lipped about her work, but Emily seemed to be an exception, at least to some degree. If anyone knew what Sarah was referring to, it would be Emily. Finding Emily wasn't difficult. A quick search of Sarah's old work directory, still saved on my personal laptop from when I'd backed up some shared files, gave me her full name, Emily Carter. Another quick search online and I found her LinkedIn profile, her current workplace, even a public email address. She was still working in the same field at a different, though well-known research institution across the city. I knew I couldn't just call her and blurt out everything. If Sarah thought they were watching, then Emily might be under similar scrutiny. I carefully crafted an email, making it sound innocuous, a friendly reach-out from Sarah's former partner, expressing condolences and mentioning a desire to connect with people who knew Sarah well, to share memories. I ended it with a subtle hint. I've been going through some of Sarah's things, and a journal mentioned your name. It made me think of you. I waited. The reply came 2 days later. Short, polite, and cautious. Emily agreed to meet for coffee, suggesting a busy, public cafe near her office during her lunch break. The choice of location spoke volumes. She was being careful. The cafe buzzed with the lunchtime crowd, a symphony of clattering dishes and muffled conversations. Emily was already there when I arrived, nursing a half-empty latte. She looked different from the photo on her LinkedIn, older, more tired, with a guarded expression in her eyes. She wore a simple, dark suit, professional and unassuming. "Thank you for meeting me, Emily," I said, sliding into the seat opposite her. "I know this might be strange." "It's fine," she said, her voice low. "Sarah was a good friend. I miss her." There was a genuine sadness in her eyes, but also a tension, a wariness that confirmed my suspicions. I didn't waste time with small talk. "Emily, I found Sarah's journal. She wrote about Chimera. And she wrote about you. She said you were worried too. That you'd seen things." Emily's posture stiffened. She glanced around the cafe, her eyes darting between tables. "Look," she whispered, leaning forward slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about. Sarah and I worked on some projects together, sure, but nothing unusual. She was a brilliant scientist, but sometimes a bit dramatic. Her denial was too quick, too sharp. It was a performance." "Emily, please. Sarah wrote that you believed they were watching you both. She wrote it just weeks before she died. She thought something was wrong with Chimera." Emily's gaze settled on me. A mixture of fear and something else, resignation. "You don't understand what you're getting involved in," she said, her voice barely audible over the cafe noise. "It's bigger than you think. Bigger than Sarah thought. Tell me," I pleaded. "Tell me what Chimera is. What did Sarah find? What did you see?" She took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly around her cup. Chimera wasn't just a project, it was an initiative, funded by a consortium of private entities, supposedly for advanced bioengineering, regenerative medicine, cutting-edge stuff. But Sarah, she had access to the core data. She started seeing discrepancies, anomalies in the genetic sequences, things that shouldn't have been there, not in the way they were presented. Discrepancies? What kind? Synthetic markers. Not just standard gene editing, but patterns, sequences that suggested artificial manipulation on a scale that was unprecedented. She thought they were building something, not just repairing but designing. And not for therapeutic purposes, not for humans, not directly anyway. She suspected they were creating designer organisms, specialized bioagents, possibly for military or industrial applications. Things that could be weaponized or used for extreme environmental modification. Emily's voice trembled. She was trying to blow the whistle. She was gathering proof. My blood ran cold. Bioagents. Weaponized organisms. This wasn't just corporate espionage. This was something out of a nightmare. And her accident? Emily's eyes welled up. She was going to meet me. That night. She said she had everything. She was going to expose them. I told her to be careful, but she was so determined. So fearless. She paused, wiping a tear from her cheek. I think they silenced her. They made it look like an accident. And they knew she was coming to me. The last part hit me like a physical blow. They knew. They were watching. And now, by meeting Emily, I had just put myself directly in their crosshairs. The guilt I had carried for so long, the belief that Sarah's death was my fault, now twisted into a different kind of horror. It wasn't my fault she died, but it was my fault I hadn't listened, hadn't paid attention, hadn't seen the danger she was in. Did she give you anything? Any of the proof? I asked, my voice strained. Emily shook her head. No. She said she was keeping it safe, somewhere no one would ever think to look. A backup. She was paranoid, but for good reason it seems. Do you know where? She mentioned an old place. A childhood hideout maybe. Somewhere she always felt safe. But she never told me where it was specifically. An old place. A childhood hideout. My mind raced, trying to conjure images from Sarah's past, but nothing immediately came to mind. Her childhood was a topic she rarely delved into, always preferring to talk about the future. Just then my phone, which I had placed face down on the table, vibrated. It was a text message from an unknown number. I picked it up, my heart pounding. The message was short, chillingly precise. We know you met with Emily. Stop digging, or you'll end up like Sarah. My breath hitched. Emily saw the fear in my eyes. What is it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned the phone to her. Her face drained of color. They've been watching us, she said, her voice trembling. They're here. A sudden sharp crack echoed through the cafe. Not a gunshot, but the unmistakable sound of a ceramic mug shattering on the tile floor behind me. I spun around, my eyes scanning the crowd. A man in a dark hoodie was bending down, picking up the pieces, his face obscured by the hood. But as he straightened for a fleeting second, his eyes met mine. They were cold, devoid of emotion, and they held an unmistakable message. A warning. This wasn't just intimidation. It was a promise. I was no longer just a curious bystander. I was now a target, immersed in a shadowy war I barely understood, armed only with a vague name, a terrifying threat, and the desperate hope of finding Sarah's hidden truth. The chilling finality of that call echoed in my ears long after I'd slammed the phone down. It wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. I was no longer just a curious bystander. I was now a target, immersed in a shadowy war I barely understood, armed only with a vague name, a terrifying threat, and the desperate hope of finding Sarah's hidden truth. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every shadow seemed to stretch. Every creak in my old apartment building sounded like footsteps approaching my door. I triple-checked the locks, pulled the blinds tight, and rearranged my furniture so I could see the entrance from my bed. Paranoia was a suffocating blanket, but it was also a shield. They knew I was digging, and that meant I had to dig harder, faster. Elias Vance. The name was burned into my mind. My first instinct was the internet. I started with a simple search, my fingers trembling slightly on the keyboard. Elias Vance, I typed, then hit enter. The results painted a picture of a highly successful, respectable man, tech entrepreneur, philanthropist, board member of several prominent charities. Clean-cut photos showed him smiling at galas, shaking hands with politicians. He looked like the kind of person who'd be on the cover of a business magazine, not a shadowy figure connected to a clandestine organization. It was almost too perfect, too polished. Sarah, I knew, had an uncanny ability to spot the cracks in such veneers. She always said the most dangerous people were the ones who hid in plain sight, camouflaged by their own manufactured respectability. This Elias Vance felt exactly like that. I dove deeper. I cross-referenced his companies, his board affiliations, his public appearances. I looked for anything, any anomaly, any minor scandal, a disgruntled former employee, a whisper of controversy. Nothing. His online presence was meticulously curated, a digital fortress designed to project an image of unimpeachable integrity. It was frustrating, like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. Then a thought struck me. Sarah wouldn't have left a trail that was easily discoverable by someone like me, let alone by the collective. Her hidden truth wouldn't be in public records or easily accessible databases. It would be something personal, something only I might be able to find, a message encoded in our shared history, or tucked away in a place I would instinctively look. I remembered her old external hard drive. It was a clunky, outdated device she used for backing up old projects and personal photos, a digital time capsule. After she died, I'd held onto it, along with a few other mementos, storing them in a box at the back of my closet, unable to part with anything that had been hers. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead I had that wasn't public. I retrieved the box, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread. There it was, a sleek silver rectangle, deceptively innocent. I plugged it into my laptop, the familiar whirring sound a ghost of Sarah's presence. The drive opened, revealing folders filled with old college essays, travel photos, and design projects. Nothing immediately screamed hidden truth, but Sarah was methodical. She organized everything. I started sifting through the folders, looking for anything out of place. A folder named recipes, containing no recipes. A file named vacation plans that was unusually large. I opened them, only to find them empty or filled with decoy data. She was good. Too good. Then I spotted it. Tucked away within a subfolder labeled Old Family Photos was a file simply titled Project X. It was an executable file, not a typical document, which immediately raised a red flag. I tried to open it, but a password prompt appeared. My mind raced. What would Sarah use? Not her birthday, not a pet's name. It would be something obscure, something only we shared. I typed in a few guesses: our college mascot, the name of our favorite coffee shop, the absurd nickname we had for our calculus professor. All rejected. I closed my eyes, trying to conjure Sarah's voice, her laugh. What was important to her that was also a secret? Then it hit me. A silly inside joke from our freshman year. A phrase we'd coined after a particularly disastrous study session, referring to a concept we could never quite grasp: quantum entanglement of socks. It was utterly ridiculous, precisely the kind of thing Sarah would use to hide something important in plain sight. I typed it in, carefully, capitalization and spacing exact. Quantum entanglement of socks. The file opened. What appeared on my screen was a sophisticated, encrypted interface, unlike anything I'd ever seen her use. It was a secure data vault, a digital stronghold designed to protect its contents from prying eyes. Inside, there wasn't just one file, but dozens. Communications logs, financial statements, redacted reports, and Sarah's own meticulously compiled notes, all time-stamped and cross-referenced. My eyes scanned the documents, piecing together the fragments. Sarah had been working as a freelance data analyst, hired by a seemingly legitimate tech firm called Aegis Solutions, one of Elias Vance's many ventures. Her initial task was routine: optimize data flow, identify market trends. But Sarah, with her insatiable curiosity and sharp intellect, had gone beyond her scope. She had stumbled upon a complex web of shell corporations and offshore accounts, all linked back to Aegis Solutions and, ultimately, to Elias Vance. These weren't just tax evasion schemes. These were conduits for illicit data brokering, harvesting personal information on a massive scale, not just for targeted advertising, but for something far more sinister: influence peddling and manipulation. Sarah's notes detailed how Vance and his network were using this stolen data to create sophisticated psychological profiles, then deploying targeted disinformation campaigns to sway public opinion, even to manipulate local elections. The collective, as Sarah had cryptically referred to them in her notes, wasn't just a shadowy group of criminals. It was a highly organized, almost institutionalized network with deep roots in legitimate businesses and political circles, all operating under Elias Vance's seemingly benevolent guidance. Sarah's hidden truth wasn't just about Vance's dirty money. It was about the systematic erosion of truth and democracy itself, fueled by the very data we willingly shared online. She had been on the verge of exposing a major operation that could have brought down not just Vance, but a significant portion of the collective's intricate web. This was why she was killed. This was why I was now a target. My hand shook as I scrolled through her final entries. She had been terrified, knowing the magnitude of what she'd uncovered. Her last note, dated just days before her accident, was a desperate plea. If anything happens to me, if this file ever sees the light of day, contact Daniel Hayes. He's a journalist, investigative reporter. He tried to expose Vance years ago, but couldn't get enough proof. He'll know what to do. He's the only one I trust to finish this. Daniel Hayes. A new name, a new lead. But before I could even process this overwhelming revelation, my laptop screen flickered. A single ominous message appeared, superimposed over Sarah's encrypted files. We warned you. This is your final chance to walk away. The next message won't be a phone call. The words burned into my retina. It wasn't a hack. It was a direct penetration, a demonstration of their power. They had been watching. They knew I had found the files. My apartment suddenly felt less like a sanctuary and more like a cage. Every shadow deepened, every creak magnified into a threat. I was no longer just digging for Sarah's truth. I was fighting for my own survival. And now I had a name, Daniel Hayes, a potential ally or another person I was unwittingly dragging into this deadly game. The name Daniel Hayes echoed in my mind, a fragile lifeline in a sea of unknowns. My first instinct was to find him immediately, but the world had taught me caution. I couldn't just call him, couldn't just show up at his door. Not with the feeling of eyes on my back, a phantom pressure that never truly subsided. I needed information, a way to approach him that wouldn't put either of us in more danger. I started with the most mundane tools, the internet. I scoured public records, social media, professional networks. Daniel Hayes wasn't a common name, but it wasn't unique either. There were dozens, hundreds of them. I narrowed my search by cross-referencing with the limited information I had about Sarah's company, her project, the specific department she worked in. Slowly, painstakingly, a profile began to emerge. Daniel Hayes, mid-40s, a senior systems architect at the same tech firm where Sarah had worked. He had a modest online presence, a LinkedIn profile, a few old photos on a forgotten Facebook account, a mention in an annual company newsletter about a charity drive. Nothing that screamed conspiracy or danger, but enough to confirm he was the right Daniel Hayes. He lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, about an hour's drive from my own apartment. He had a family, a wife, 2 kids, judging by the blurry photos. This complicated things. I wasn't just risking myself anymore. I was potentially walking into this man's life and shattering it, exposing him and his loved ones to whatever dark forces were at play. The thought made my stomach churn. But the alternative, abandoning Sarah's memory, living with this gnawing uncertainty, was unthinkable. I needed to make contact, but how? A direct call would be too risky, too easily intercepted. A visit to his home felt intrusive and potentially dangerous for him. I considered sending an anonymous email, but what if it was traced? What if he dismissed it as a prank? The urgency of my need warred with the imperative for absolute discretion. Then an idea, born of desperation and the lingering specter of Sarah's own meticulousness. The tech firm. They had an internal messaging system, a secure portal for employees. If Sarah had accessed that server, if she had interacted with Daniel Hayes on a professional basis, perhaps there was a way to reach him through a channel he already considered secure, a channel that might not immediately raise red flags to an outsider, but would be instantly recognizable to him. It was a long shot, a shot in the dark. I spent hours, days, trying to replicate Sarah's digital footprint, recalling every detail she'd ever mentioned about her work setup. I remembered her frustration with multi-factor authentication, her habit of using a specific encrypted browser for certain tasks. It was like trying to pick a lock with a memory. Finally, after countless failed attempts, a flicker of success. I managed to access a cached version of her old work portal login, a ghost in the machine. It wasn't enough to log in, but it showed me the structure, the internal directories. And there, buried deep in an archived project folder related to Project Nightingale, the very project Sarah had been so secretive about, was a message thread between Sarah and Daniel Hayes. The messages were technical, discussing server loads and data integrity, but one line from Sarah stood out, dated just days before her accident. "Daniel, I'm seeing some anomalies in the Nightingale logs. Can we discuss offline? It feels off." Daniel's reply was terse. "Understood. My office, 5 p.m. tomorrow. Keep it quiet. Offline. Keep it quiet. Anomalies." It was a smoking gun, or at least a heavily smoking clue. It confirmed Daniel wasn't just a random colleague. He was involved, at least peripherally, in Sarah's final investigation. I knew I couldn't use the firm's internal system directly. It was too risky, too traceable, even if I could somehow spoof Sarah's old account. I needed a different method, something that would resonate with Daniel, something that would make him trust this anonymous message. I crafted a message carefully. Not too much information, just enough to pique his interest and evoke the memory of Sarah. I found a public forum for tech enthusiasts, a niche board where anonymous posts were common and unlikely to be scrutinized by corporate entities. I created a burner account, untraceable, and posted a cryptic message directed at him. To Daniel A. Tree, Nightingale anomalies. Sarah's concern was justified. "I need to talk. Urgent. Meet me tomorrow 7 p.m. under the old oak tree in Miller's Park. Come alone. Don't speak to anyone about this." It was blunt, almost crude, but I hoped the specificity of Nightingale anomalies and Sarah's concern would cut through any skepticism. Miller's Park was a neutral, public location, relatively quiet after dark, with enough ambient light from street lamps but also shadows for discretion. The old oak tree was a local landmark, easy to find. The wait was agonizing. Every passing minute felt like an hour. Had he seen it? Would he dismiss it? Would he report it? The paranoia was a constant companion, a cold knot in my stomach. I spent the next day in a heightened state of alert, jumping at every shadow, every unexpected sound. I changed my routine, took circuitous routes, trying to shake the feeling of being watched, even though I knew it was likely futile. As dusk settled, I made my way to Miller's Park. I arrived early, staking out the area, trying to blend into the sparse evening crowd of dog walkers and joggers. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation and fear. What if this was a trap? What if they had seen my message, not Daniel? The thought sent a chill down my spine. I considered turning back, but the image of Sarah's smiling face flashed in my mind, resolute. I couldn't. 7 o'clock came and went. 7:15. 7:30. My hope began to dwindle, replaced by a bitter disappointment. Maybe he hadn't seen it. Maybe he was too scared. Maybe he was already gone. I was about to give up, to admit defeat, when a figure slowly approached the old oak tree. He was a man of average height, slightly stooped, with thinning hair and glasses perched on his nose. He wore a sensible jacket, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He looked nervous, his eyes darting around the park, betraying a similar apprehension to my own. It was Daniel Hayes. I waited until he was directly under the tree, looking around uncertainly. Then I emerged from the shadows of a nearby bush, keeping my voice low and steady. "Daniel!" He jumped, startled, his head snapping towards me. His eyes, magnified by his glasses, were wide with fear. Who are you?" His voice was a strained whisper. "I'm a friend of Sarah's," I said, stepping fully into the faint light. "I know about Project Nightingale. I know she was looking into anomalies, and I believe her death wasn't an accident." He visibly flinched at the mention of Sarah's death, his face paling further. He looked around again, his gaze lingering on a family pushing a stroller in the distance, then back to me, his expression a mix of terror and resignation. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, his voice trembling. "You shouldn't have contacted me. This is dangerous." "I know it's dangerous," I replied, trying to project a calmness I didn't feel. "But Sarah was my friend, and I need to know the truth. You were involved, weren't you? With her investigation into Nightingale." He hesitated, his eyes scanning my face, trying to assess me. I could see the conflict raging within him. Fear for himself, fear for his family, battling with what I hoped was a sense of responsibility, a desire for justice. Finally, with a weary sigh, he nodded slowly. "Yes," he rasped. "She came to me. She was worried, said she'd found something. Something big. Something that could bring down the entire system." "What was it?" I pressed, my voice barely audible, desperate for answers. Daniel took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on some distant point, as if recalling a nightmare. "It was about the data," he began, his voice gaining a fragile strength. "Project Nightingale wasn't just a data analytics platform, not really. It was designed to optimize outcomes for clients, for the company. But Sarah found evidence that it wasn't just optimizing, it was manipulating, fabricating, creating false positives, false negatives to push certain agendas, certain stock prices, certain political narratives." My blood ran cold. "Manipulating what? What kind of data?" "Everything," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Financial forecasts, market trends, even public opinion polls. Sarah believed Nightingale was being used to generate specific, desired outcomes, not just predict them. It wasn't just about making money, it was about control. Control over information, over perception." "And she found proof?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. He nodded, his eyes now meeting mine, filled with a haunted look. "She showed me log files, encrypted communications, algorithms that were designed to subtly shift data points, to create a ripple effect that would ultimately lead to a predetermined conclusion. It was brilliant, insidious, untraceable unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. And Sarah, she knew. So someone killed her to keep this quiet," I stated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth, "because she was about to expose it." "She was planning to go public," Daniel confirmed, his voice low and urgent. She was gathering her final evidence, making copies, securing backups. She told me she had enough to blow the lid off everything. She was going to meet an investigative journalist. The day after she died, the information hit me like a physical blow. Sarah wasn't just looking into an anomaly. She was on the verge of exposing a massive, systematic deception, a conspiracy that had tentacles reaching far beyond a simple tech firm. This wasn't just about an accidental death anymore. This was about murder, about powerful people protecting their secrets at any cost. "Do you have anything?" I asked, my mind racing. "Any of the evidence she showed you? Any of her backups?" Daniel shook his head slowly, a look of profound regret on his face. "No. She was always careful, always paranoid. She kept everything on encrypted drives, hidden. She said she'd only share the full proof when she was ready to go public. She trusted me with the knowledge, with the general idea, but not with the physical evidence. She didn't want to implicate me or my family." He paused, his gaze hardening. "But she did tell me one thing. A failsafe. If anything happened to her, she had sent a copy of her final report, a compressed, encrypted file, to a trusted contact outside the company. Someone she knew would understand the gravity of it. Someone who could be counted on to release it if she couldn't." "Who?" I pressed, my voice barely a whisper, a desperate hope blooming in my chest. "Who was it?" Daniel looked around one last time, his eyes filled with a fresh wave of fear. "She called him the archivist. She never gave me a name, just a code. Said he operated in the shadows, a legend in certain circles. A former government analyst, she thought. She said he had a specific Dropbox, an anonymous server where she sent the file. She believed he would know what to do." He swallowed hard. "She told me the access code just in case. She made me memorize it. Said it was a line from an old poem." My mind reeled. The archivist. A secret server. A poem. This was far more complex, far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. Sarah hadn't just been tinkering with data. She had been playing a deadly game against an invisible enemy, an enemy powerful enough to silence her. And now I was in her place. The weight of it settled on my shoulders, heavy and cold. I had a name, a code, and a looming threat. And I knew with chilling certainty that I was no longer just searching for answers. I was now actively hunted. The words echoed in my mind, each syllable a hammer blow against my fragile sense of security. Elias Thorne. The name felt like a brand searing itself onto my identity. I wasn't just a grieving partner anymore. I was a target, and the first, most primal instinct that surged through me was to run. But where? And from whom? My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a glass cage. Every shadow held a potential watcher, every creak of the old building a footstep. I moved with a sudden, frantic energy, pulling down the blinds, checking the locks, peering through the peephole as if expecting to see a face pressed against the lens. My palms were sweating, my heart thrumming against my ribs. This wasn't paranoia, this was survival. Jessica's hidden compartment, the source of this terrifying revelation, still lay open. The USB drive, the small notebook, the burner phone. They were no longer just clues. They were weapons, and I had just inherited the arsenal along with the war that came with it. I picked up the USB drive, its cold plastic a stark contrast to the heat radiating from my skin. The code. It had to be for this. A password, an encryption key. I went to my laptop, my fingers fumbling as I plugged in the drive. It popped up, showing a single encrypted file. No surprise there. I tried a few common passwords, Jessica's birthday, my birthday, our anniversary. Nothing. Then I remembered the notebook. Jessica had been meticulous, almost obsessively so, about details. She'd hidden that code for a reason. It wasn't just a randomly generated string. It was something personal, something only I or perhaps she would know. I flipped through the notebook again, not just looking for a sequence of characters, but for a pattern, a hint. It was filled with what looked like innocuous notes, grocery lists, reminders, even a few silly doodles. But then, tucked away on a page dedicated to future projects, I saw it. A series of seemingly disconnected words underlined at irregular intervals. Echo, Labyrinth, Iris, Alpha, Sentinel, followed by a date several years old, and a set of coordinates that I recognized as an abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of the city. My mind raced. Echo, Labyrinth, Iris, Alpha, Sentinel. These weren't random. They felt like a mnemonic, a passphrase. But for what? I typed them into the password prompt for the encrypted file on the USB, capitalizing the first letter of each word as I had seen them underlined, and then, for good measure, adding the old date Jessica had written. Nothing. Access denied. Frustration clawed at me. Jessica wouldn't have made it impossible. There had to be another layer. I looked at the words again. Echo, Labyrinth, Iris, Alpha, Sentinel. What if it wasn't a passphrase but a sequence of first letters? Thorn. My breath hitched. Elias Thorn. Was the code literally my new identity? I tried it. No, that was too simple. Maybe just Elias Thorn as the password? I typed it in, heart hammering. The file unlocked. A folder appeared, filled with documents, spreadsheets, and short audio clips. My hands trembled as I clicked on the first document. It was a dossier. On me. My full name, date of birth, address, employment history, even details about my family. It was unnervingly comprehensive. And at the bottom, in bold letters, target acquired, Elias Thorn. My blood ran cold. This wasn't my dossier, not in the way I understood it. This was an assignment, a profile for someone else to take on. Jessica hadn't just found Elias Thorn. She had become him or had been forced to. And now I was. The weight of it was crushing. I scrolled through the other files. Most were coded, filled with financial transactions, network diagrams, and names I didn't recognize. But one folder labeled Operation Chimera caught my eye. Inside, a series of reports detailing a complex, multinational data harvesting operation. They weren't stealing money, not directly. They were stealing information. Personal data, corporate secrets, government intelligence. And it all seemed to funnel back to a shadowy organization referred to only as the Collective. The Collective. This was it. This was who Jessica was fighting. This was who killed her. And I had just inherited her war, her identity, and her enemies. I opened one of the audio files. It was short, static-filled, but the voice was unmistakable. Jessica's voice. If you're hearing this, she began, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and determination. It means I'm gone. They got me. Or they're close. The accident was no accident. They want Chimera and they think I have the key. I don't. Not anymore. Passed it on. To you. A pause, a ragged breath. Elias Thorn isn't a person, not really. It's a role. A placeholder. The one who cleans up the mess, the fall guy, the ghost in the machine. They use the name for operatives who get too close, too dangerous, or who need to disappear. I became Elias Thorn when I uncovered too much about Chimera. They tried to turn me, but I wouldn't break. So they made me a liability. And now they'll make you a liability too, unless you play their game better than I did. My throat was dry, my eyes burning. Jessica always one step ahead, even in death. She knew this would happen. She predicted it. She had left me a roadmap, a warning, and a mission. The key to Chimera isn't a digital file, she continued, her voice growing stronger, a steel core beneath the fear. It's a person, a central figure. They call him the architect. He's the one who built it all, and he's the only one who can dismantle it. My research led me to one name, one connection that kept appearing in the deepest corners of their network. David Miller. He's a former aerospace engineer, brilliant but disgraced. He disappeared years ago, but his footprint is all over Chimera. Find David Miller. He knows more than he lets on, I'm sure of it. He's the real Elias Thorn, the original. He's the one who created the identity, the one they're trying to silence. My accident was meant to draw him out, to make him think they had succeeded. Don't let them win. Don't let them use you like they used me. The audio clip ended abruptly. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. David Miller. The architect. The original Elias Thorn. My head spun. This was bigger than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just about Jessica's death anymore. It was about a global network, a vast conspiracy, and a man named David Miller who held the true key. I closed the laptop, the screen reflecting my pale, haunted face. I wasn't just being hunted. I was being manipulated. They wanted me to step into the role of Elias Thorn, to be the new ghost, the new scapegoat. But Jessica had given me a different path. Find David Miller. The paranoia that had gripped me earlier intensified. If Jessica knew all this, if she was leaving me clues, then they knew she was leaving clues. And if they knew I had the USB drive, then they were already watching. I had to assume my apartment was compromised, my phone tapped, my every move monitored. I needed to disappear. to become a ghost myself, but not the kind they wanted. I needed to become the kind of ghost that hunted back. My mind raced through possibilities. I couldn't go to the police. They were likely compromised or wouldn't believe a story this outlandish. My friends and family? Too dangerous. They would become targets the moment I involved them. I was utterly alone in this. The burner phone in Jessica's hidden compartment. That was my lifeline. It was clean, untraceable. But who would I call? No one. It was for me to use, not for communication with the outside world. I started packing a small bag, shoving essentials inside. Cash, a change of clothes, Jessica's notebook, the USB drive, and the burner phone. I couldn't stay here. The coordinates Jessica had left in her notebook, the abandoned warehouse district. Was that a meeting point? A dead drop? Or just a place she had visited during her investigation? It was the only tangible lead I had, apart from a name. Before I left, I did something I never thought I'd do. I wiped my laptop clean, every personal file, every trace of my digital life. Then I took Jessica's regular phone and smashed it, pulverizing it with a hammer I found in a toolbox. If they were tracking her, they wouldn't track me through her old device. As I slipped out of my apartment building, disguised in an old beanie and a pair of sunglasses, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The city lights blurred around me, each car a potential tale, each pedestrian a possible operative. I hailed a cab, giving a generic address far from the warehouse district, just to throw off any immediate pursuit. I watched the rearview mirror, my heart pounding, but saw nothing overtly suspicious. The cab dropped me off at a busy intersection. From there I walked, ducking into shops, changing directions randomly, trying to lose any unseen followers. I didn't know if it was working, but the act of taking control, however minor, was empowering. Eventually, I made my way to the edge of the abandoned district. The air grew colder, the streets darker. Broken windows stared like vacant eyes from skeletal buildings. This was the kind of place where secrets were kept and lives were lost. According to Jessica's notes, David Miller, the architect, was connected to this area. I checked the coordinates again on the burner phone's offline map. It pointed to a particularly dilapidated warehouse, its corrugated metal walls rusting, its roof partially caved in. It looked deserted, forgotten, too quiet. As I approached the warehouse, a flicker of movement caught my eye in a darkened alley. A shadow too fast to properly register. My blood went cold. They were here. Or someone was. I was no longer just being hunted. I was being drawn in. I debated turning back, but the thought of Jessica, her brave, desperate voice on that audio file spurred me forward. I had to know. I had to find David Miller. I had to finish what she started. I crept towards the warehouse, my senses on high alert. The wind whistled through broken panes, sounding like whispers. The air was thick with the smell of dust and decay. I found a side door, rusted shut but with a gaping hole where the lock should have been. I pushed it open slowly, the groan of metal echoing eerily in the silence. Inside, it was a cavernous space, dimly lit by slivers of moonlight filtering through the gaps in the roof. Old machinery lay scattered, draped in tarps like forgotten giants. The air was colder here, heavier, and then I saw it. In the center of the vast space, amidst the industrial wreckage, was a single clean workspace. A table, a chair, and a laptop. The screen was open, glowing faintly, and on the screen a message. "Welcome, Elias Thorne. We've been expecting you." My breath caught in my throat. It was a trap, a meticulously laid trap. They knew I was coming. They knew I would find the code. They knew I would follow Jessica's breadcrumbs. And now I was exactly where they wanted me to be. The weight of the world and Jessica's ghost settled on my shoulders. I was no longer just searching for answers. I was now actively hunted, and I had just walked into the lion's den. The air in the vast, derelict factory complex was thick with the smell of rust, damp concrete, and something else. A metallic tang that pricked at my senses, like ozone before a storm. The only light filtered weakly through grime-caked skylights high above, casting long, distorted shadows that danced with every subtle shift in the breeze. I felt it instantly. The silence wasn't empty, it was waiting. The hairs on my arms stood on end. This wasn't just an abandoned factory. It was a stage. And I was the unwilling star. A low guttural cough echoed from the darkness to my right. Then another, closer, from behind a stack of rusted machinery. My heart hammered against my ribs. I hadn't just walked into the lion's den. I'd walked into a cage. Well, Michael. a voice drawled from the shadows, smooth as polished obsidian, yet with an underlying current of menace. It was the same voice from the phone, the one that had twisted my life into this nightmare. Took you long enough. We were starting to think you'd lost your nerve. Slowly, deliberately, a figure emerged from the gloom. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a dark suit that seemed out of place in such a ruin, his silver hair neatly combed back from a high forehead. His eyes, though, were what truly held me. Cold, analytical, devoid of warmth. He looked like an executive, perhaps a CEO, not a shadowy puppet master. Two hulking figures in tactical gear materialized behind him, their faces impassive, their hands resting casually on weapons holstered at their hips. "Mr. Sterling, I presume," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I needed to buy time to understand. "Or is that just another one of your convenient fictions?" A thin smile played on his lips. "Sterling will do, Michael. For now. And no, this isn't fiction. This is the messy reality your dear Jessica tried to expose." He took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. "A reality you've now chosen to become intimately acquainted with." "Jessica didn't try to expose anything," I countered, anger flaring despite my fear. "She was killed. An accident you orchestrated to cover your tracks." Sterling chuckled, a dry, humorless sound that scraped across the silence. "Oh, Michael. So naive. Jessica was an accident. A necessary one, yes, but an accident of circumstance. She was tenacious, I'll give her that. Too tenacious for her own good. She was getting too close to Project Chimera." Project Chimera. The name hung in the air, heavy and ominous. "What is Project Chimera?" I demanded, my mind racing, trying to piece together the fragments. "Project Chimera," Sterling began, pacing slowly, "is the future, Michael. It's the culmination of decades of research into human behavior, predictive analytics, and social engineering. Imagine knowing with near-perfect accuracy what a population will do, how they'll react, what they'll believe. Imagine shaping public opinion, influencing markets, even guiding political outcomes, all from the shadows. That's Chimera." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about a data breach or corporate espionage. This was about something far more insidious. "You're talking about controlling people," I whispered, the implications chilling me to the bone. "We're talking about guiding them," Sterling corrected, a hint of disdain in his voice. "For their own good, of course. Society is messy, unpredictable. We bring order. We ensure stability." And Jessica, with her quaint notions of journalistic integrity and truth, was about to throw a wrench into the most sophisticated system ever devised. "She found something specific, didn't she?" I pressed, trying to bait him to get more details. "Not just getting close. She had proof." Sterling stopped, turning to face me fully. The smile vanished. "Indeed. Jessica managed to acquire a fragment of the core algorithm, a piece of code that, if properly analyzed and released, could have exposed the entire operation. Not just Chimera, but the Aegis Group itself, the organization that has quietly shaped the world for generations. The Aegis Group. The name resonated with power, with a sense of ancient, unyielding authority. It was more than a company. It was a shadow government, a clandestine force. "So you killed her," I stated, the words tasting like ash. "And you framed me to make it look like a tragic love story gone wrong. A perfect distraction. A happy coincidence, you might say," Sterling conceded, a flicker of amusement returning to his eyes. "You were convenient. The jilted lover, the accidental push. It was all so poetic. It made her research seem like the ramblings of a distraught woman, tainted by personal drama. Who would believe a suicide note from a woman who just had a fight with her boyfriend? No one. And her research would be dismissed as a delusion." He gestured to one of his enforcers, who stepped forward, holding a tablet. On the screen I saw familiar documents, Jessica's research notes, her meticulous data points, her coded findings. But there was something else. A news article fabricated, detailing my alleged history of erratic behavior, a supposed pattern of jealousy and control. It was a complete smear campaign, designed to paint me as the villain, to invalidate anything Jessica might have left behind. "We scrubbed her apartment, of course," Sterling continued, his voice devoid of emotion. "Removed anything incriminating. Planted enough evidence to ensure the official narrative held. But we suspected she might have had redundancies. Jessica was thorough. So we let you lead us. We fed you just enough breadcrumbs, just enough conspiracy to keep you digging, to keep you on the trail, always one step behind, always leading us to whatever she might have hidden. My blood ran cold. Every anonymous tip, every cryptic message, every clue. It had all been a carefully orchestrated dance, a puppet show where I was the main act, unwittingly doing their bidding. They hadn't wanted me to find the truth. They wanted me to lead them to it. "So where is it, Michael?" Sterling asked, his voice hardening, the pretense of civility fading. "Where did she hide the algorithm? Or the full data set? She trusted you, didn't she? Did she give you a copy? A key? A location?" "I don't know what you're talking about." I lied, my mind racing, trying to process the sheer scale of their deception. I had to protect whatever Jessica had found, even if I didn't fully understand it yet. Sterling sighed, a sound of profound disappointment. "Such a waste of potential. You could have been useful, Michael. You're intelligent, resourceful. A shame." He nodded to the two enforcers. "Search him. And then perhaps, he'll be more forthcoming." The two men moved quickly, efficiently. One grabbed my arms, pinning them behind my back with surprising strength. The other began patting me down, his hands expertly sweeping over my pockets, my jacket, my waist. I struggled, but their grip was like iron. "You won't get away with this," I grunted, straining against their hold. "The truth always comes out." Sterling laughed, a genuine chilling laugh this time. "The truth, Michael, is a malleable concept. We control the narrative. We control the data. We are the truth. And by the time anyone even suspects what we're doing, it will be too late. They'll be living in the world we've already built for them." The enforcer finished his search. "Nothing, sir. Just a wallet, keys, phone." Sterling's eyes narrowed. "He's hiding something. Or she hid it well. Think, Michael. Did she mention a dead drop? A cloud server? An old external hard drive? Anything that wasn't in her apartment?" I clenched my jaw, refusing to give them anything. My mind raced back to Jessica, to our last conversations, to her habits. She was paranoid, meticulous. She wouldn't have left anything obvious. But where would she hide something truly critical? A place no one would ever think to look. A place I would know but no one else. Then it hit me. A memory, fleeting but vivid. A conversation we'd had years ago about a silly game, a personal joke. My stomach lurched. It was too simple, too obvious, yet utterly brilliant. A place only she and I would know about. "You're wasting your time," I said, trying to sound defiant, despite the cold knot of fear in my stomach. She wouldn't have told me. Not directly. She knew the risks. Sterling's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Fine. If you won't tell us, we'll extract it. There are ways, Michael. Unpleasant ways." He nodded to the enforcers again. "Take him. We have all night." The enforcers began to drag me deeper into the sprawling complex, away from the weak light, towards a darker, more isolated section. I fought, kicking and twisting, desperate not to be taken into whatever grim chamber awaited me. My mind was reeling, a jumble of fear, anger, and a sudden terrifying clarity. I knew where Jessica had hidden it, and I knew that if I told them, it would be the end not just for me, but for countless others. As they dragged me past a stack of crates, my eyes darted around, searching for anything. A loose pipe, a discarded tool, a structural weakness. My gaze fell upon a heavy metal door, rusted shut with a faded danger. High voltage sign barely clinging to its surface. An idea, reckless and desperate, sparked in my mind. "You really think you can control everyone?" I shouted, trying to provoke Sterling to buy a fraction of a second. "You think you're gods?" Sterling merely watched, a cold, predatory glint in his eyes. "We are simply the architects of tomorrow, Michael. And you, unfortunately, are merely a loose brick that needs to be removed from the foundation." One of the enforcers shoved me forward, momentarily loosening his grip. It was now or never. With a surge of adrenaline, I twisted violently, slamming my elbow back into the face of the man behind me. A grunt of pain, and his grip slackened further. The other enforcer, caught off guard, tried to reassert his hold, but I was already moving. I lunged towards the heavy metal door, not caring about the high voltage warning, only about the potential for chaos. My shoulder hit the door with a desperate thud, rattling it on its ancient hinges. It wouldn't budge. But the impact, the sudden noise, had drawn Sterling's attention. "Stop him," Sterling commanded, his voice sharp and urgent for the first time. The enforcers recovered, closing in. I was trapped against the door, my back to the cold metal, But I had seen something else. A small, exposed conduit running along the wall, directly above the door, sparking faintly. A frayed wire. A chance. As the first enforcer reached me, I ducked under his arm, scrambling upwards, my fingers scrabbling for purchase on the rusted metal of the door frame. My hand closed around the exposed conduit, ignoring the warning in my brain. A jolt, sharp and painful, shot through me, but I held on. The sparking intensified. "Fool!" Sterling yelled, realizing my intent. "He'll bring the whole grid down." The second enforcer lunged, trying to pull me away. But I was already pulling, twisting the frayed wire, tearing at the corroded insulation. The sparks flew, a brilliant, blinding flash, accompanied by a deafening crackle. The air filled with the acrid smell of burning plastic and ozone. Then utter darkness. The entire complex plunged into an inky blackness, punctuated only by the dying crackle of the severed power line and the faint, panicked shouts of Sterling's men. I fell, disoriented, hitting the concrete floor hard, my head ringing. But I was free for a precious few seconds in the pitch black. The lion's den was now blind, and I, for the first time since this nightmare began, had a weapon. The metal bar, heavy and cold, felt like an extension of my arm. I'd snatched it blindly as I fell, my fingers closing around its rough, cylindrical surface. It wasn't elegant, but it was solid, substantial. A crude equalizer against the unseen threats around me. My head throbbed, a dull ache behind my right temple, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins sharpened my senses. The pitch black was absolute, a suffocating blanket that swallowed light and sound, amplifying the frantic thumping of my own heart. I heard them immediately. Guttural shouts, curses, the clumsy thud of heavy boots against concrete. They were disoriented just like me, but there were more of them. Sterling's voice, surprisingly calm amidst the chaos, cut through the darkness. "Find him. He can't have gone far. He's just a scared rat in the dark." A scared rat. Maybe, but a rat with teeth now. I scrambled, not standing but crawling low, using the vast, unfamiliar floor plan to my advantage. My hands swept across the cold concrete, feeling for obstacles for cover. I knew this was a factory, a place of heavy machinery and dangerous implements. Every shadow, every piece of equipment could be a hiding spot or a trap. The air was thick with the metallic tang of industry, a faint scent of oil and dust. A beam of light, weak and wavering, sliced through the darkness for a split second, then vanished. Someone had pulled out a phone, trying to use its pathetic flashlight. They were unprepared for a total blackout. Good. My advantage. I heard another grunt, closer this time, followed by a muffled curse. One of them had tripped. I pressed myself against what felt like a stack of wooden crates, rough and splintery against my back. My breathing was shallow, my ears straining to pick up any sound that wasn't my own frantic pulse. The darkness played tricks on me. Every creak, every distant metallic clang, sounded like footsteps approaching. My mind conjured images of their faces, their grim determination, their silent, hulking forms closing in. "Spread out. Don't let him get to the main exit." Sterling's voice again, closer this time, echoing off the high ceilings. He sounded frustrated but still in control. He wasn't just standing there. He was directing, strategizing. This wasn't just about catching me, it was about demonstrating his power. I had to move. Staying put was a death sentence. I edged along the wall of crates, my free hand extended, feeling the cold metal of machinery, the occasional sharp edge. My fingers brushed against something soft, a discarded rag, then something slick and oily. My stomach churned. This place was a maze, a predator's playground. Then I heard it. A whisper too close. "Think he's over here, boss." My blood ran cold. I froze, my body rigid against the industrial clangor surrounding me. I could feel the vibrations of heavy boots through the floor, feel their presence. They were within arm's reach, probably just on the other side of the crates. My heart hammered against my ribs, a drum solo of pure terror. This was it. Fight or flight. And flight was not an option if I was surrounded. I gripped the metal bar tighter, knuckles white. The weight of it was strangely comforting. A tangible connection to the real physical world in this sensory void. I focused on the sound of their breathing, trying to pinpoint their exact location. Two of them, judging by the murmurs. I took a deep, silent breath, and then with a guttural yell that tore from my throat, I swung. The metal bar whistled through the air, connecting with the sickening thud. A yelp of pain, a heavy fall. One down. What the hell was that? Another voice roared, startled. I didn't wait. I spun using the momentum and swung again blindly. This time the bar connected with something softer. A shoulder perhaps, followed by a sharp gasp and a scramble. The second man stumbled back, cursing, but didn't fall. He was bigger, stronger. He's here. He's got something, the man shouted, his voice strained with pain and surprise. Adrenaline surged. I didn't just hit him, I created chaos. I used the element of surprise. I didn't try to engage. I created an opening. I dropped the metal bar, letting it clatter loudly on the concrete, a decoy. Then I darted in the opposite direction, hugging the shadows, moving as silently as I could, my bare feet padding softly on the gritty floor. I heard them converge on the sound of the falling bar, shouting, confused. Where is he? Sterling's voice, sharp with rage now. He's armed. Be careful. The diversion bought me precious seconds. I could hear them fumbling for the bar, then realizing it was just a weapon, not me. Their anger fueled my escape. I pressed on, my hands guiding me through the labyrinth of machinery. My fingers found a control panel, cold metal buttons, a small LED screen that was mercifully dark. I pushed past it, then another, then another. This was the heart of the operation, where the machines hummed and whirred, where the components were assembled. I needed to get out, but where was out? My memory of the layout was hazy, distorted by fear and the sheer size of the place. I remembered a loading dock, a large roll-up door. That was my target, but reaching it meant traversing the entire factory floor, past where Sterling and his men were undoubtedly regrouping. Suddenly, a blinding beam of light cut through the blackness, stronger than the phone flashlights. A powerful tactical flashlight, probably from one of Sterling's more prepared enforcers. It swept across the floor, momentarily illuminating a stack of pallets, then a large conveyor belt, then me. I dove behind a massive, dormant industrial press, its cold metal casing a temporary haven. The light beam lingered for a moment, then swept past. I held my breath, my chest burning. They knew my general vicinity now. The net was tightening. I could hear their footsteps getting closer, more organized. They were no longer stumbling. They were hunting. I heard the click of a safety being disengaged. A gun. They were going to shoot. Panic threatened to overwhelm me. This wasn't just a game of hide and seek anymore. This was a hunt. My life, my very existence, hung by a thread thinner than any wire in this factory. I thought of Jessica, of the crushing guilt, of the truth that was buried here. I couldn't die now. Not before I exposed them. Not before I made this right. I peered around the edge of the press, my eyes trying to adjust to the flickering shadows created by the sweeping flashlight. I saw 3 figures, silhouetted against the distant vague outline of the loading dock doors. They were spreading out, moving with a terrifying efficiency. My heart pounded a desperate rhythm. I had to create another distraction, something bigger. Something that would throw them off balance long enough for me to make a dash for it. My eyes, now somewhat accustomed to the low light, scanned the immediate surroundings. Wires. Lots of wires. Control panels. And a massive emergency stop button, glowing faintly red, even in the darkness, thanks to some residual power or an internal battery. An idea, reckless and desperate, sparked in my mind. What if I didn't just escape the darkness? What if I used the darkness to create an even bigger, more widespread chaos? I began to crawl again, moving towards a cluster of control panels. My fingers brushed against thick cables, heavy-duty connectors. This was risky. I didn't know what these panels controlled, what I might trigger. But I had no other choice. I reached a large panel, its surface covered in a dizzying array of switches and buttons. My hands moved frantically, blindly, feeling for anything that seemed out of place, anything that felt like a main power conduit. I heard the crunch of footsteps behind me, closer, too close. I hear him. Over by the main presses. A voice barked. No time. I slammed my fist down, hoping to hit something vital. My hand connected with a large, heavy lever. I pushed it down with all my might. Nothing. My heart sank. Was it dead? Was I wrong? Then, with a deafening crack that echoed through the vast space, the emergency lights flickered on. Not the main lights, but the dim, yellowish emergency strips along the walls and ceilings, casting long, distorted shadows. The sudden, albeit weak, illumination was jarring, momentarily blinding. And then the sound. A low, guttural groan from the massive machinery around me, followed by a series of clanks and whirs. The entire factory floor began to hum, to rumble. The conveyor belts, dormant moments ago, began to move with a slow, grinding friction. Gears turned, pistons hissed. I had activated something. Not just the lights but the machines themselves. Confusion erupted among Sterling's men. What the hell? The power's back on? No, it's just the emergency system. Sterling's voice, now laced with genuine panic, rose above the mechanical din. Shut it down. Shut it down now. The prototypes. The components. My gamble had paid off. I hadn't just created a distraction. I had created a catastrophe for them. The machines, now running on emergency power, were moving erratically, without proper oversight. Components began to fall from conveyor belts, crashing to the floor. Arms of robotic equipment swung wildly, grinding against each other. The whole place was coming alive, but in a chaotic, destructive way. I saw my chance. The emergency lights, while dim, gave me just enough visibility to see the path to the loading dock. It was still a good distance, but the men were no longer focused on me. They were scrambling, trying to navigate the newly animated, dangerous machinery, trying to prevent their illicit operation from destroying itself. "He's making a run for it," one of them yelled, finally spotting me. But his voice was drowned out by the escalating mechanical cacophony. I ran. I sprinted across the factory floor, dodging swinging robotic arms, leaping over debris falling from the conveyor belts. The air filled with the screech of metal, the clatter of falling parts, the shouts of Sterling's men trying to control the uncontrollable. It was a symphony of destruction, and I was its conductor, albeit an accidental one. I could feel the heat of their pursuit, even over the din. They were still coming, but they were hampered, slowed by the very chaos I had unleashed. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I pushed harder. The loading dock doors, a faint rectangle of less darkness, seemed miles away. I heard a gunshot, the sharp crack cutting through the industrial roar. It was close. Too close. A bullet whizzed past my ear, striking a metal beam with a high-pitched ping. They weren't just trying to stop the machines, they were still trying to stop me. I ducked, weaving through a narrow gap between two colossal stamping presses. The emergency lights flickered, threatening to die again. The machinery around me groaned louder, straining under the unplanned activation. I was almost there. The loading dock. I could see the outline of the large roll-up door, a faint glimmer of moonlight peeking through a crack at the bottom. Freedom. Or at least the next phase of this desperate fight. But as I burst into the loading dock area, a figure emerged from the shadows blocking my path. Tall, imposing even in the dim light. Sterling. He was standing there, not running, not flustered, but waiting. A small, cruel smile played on his lips. In his hand he held a sleek black handgun, aimed directly at my chest. "Going somewhere, Michael?" he asked, his voice calm, chillingly composed, even as his illicit empire crumbled around him. "You think a little blackout and a few broken machines will save you? You've only made things worse. For yourself." My heart plummeted. I was cornered again. The final trap. And this time Sterling himself was holding the key. The roar of the factory behind me, the frantic shouts of his men, the screech of metal, all faded into a dull background noise. All I could hear was the steady click of his gun. All I could see was the cold, unyielding glint in his eyes. He wasn't just going to stop me. He was going to finish me. The click echoed, a death knell in the sudden silence that had fallen between us. Victor's eyes, cold and dead, were fixed on mine. This wasn't just about silencing me anymore. This was personal. He was going to enjoy this. My breath hitched, a desperate plea for air that never quite reached my lungs. My mind raced, not for an escape but for a last thought, a last image. Emily. Always Emily. Just as his finger tightened, a deafening crunch ripped through the air, closer this time, followed by a metallic shriek that vibrated through the very ground beneath us. It wasn't one of his men. It was something far bigger, far more chaotic. A massive section of the derelict warehouse wall, weakened by the earlier skirmish, gave way with a groaning roar, showering us in dust and debris. The structural integrity, already compromised by years of neglect, and now the recent impact of the vehicles, had finally succumbed. Victor flinched, his aim momentarily faltering as a cascade of rusted corrugated iron and splintered wood rained down near us. It was a fraction of a second, but it was all I needed. My survival instinct, honed by weeks of running and fear, took over. I didn't think, I reacted. I launched myself forward, not at Victor, but to the side, throwing my entire weight into a desperate dive, hoping to get out of his direct line of fire. The shot rang out, a sharp crack that tore through the air where I had been standing milliseconds before. The bullet lodged itself into the crumbling concrete wall behind me, sending a spray of dust into my face. I hit the ground hard, my shoulder screaming in protest, but the pain was a distant hum compared to the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Victor, momentarily disoriented by the collapsing debris and my sudden move, hesitated. His men, who had been closing in, were now scrambling, trying to avoid the falling wreckage. This was it. My only chance. Scrambling to my feet, I didn't look back. The exit was still a distant blur, but I knew the layout of this place better than Victor's goons, having studied the blueprints from the old City Hall archives. I ducked under a sagging beam, leaped over a pile of bricks, my heart hammering against my ribs. Each step was a gamble, each shadow a potential trap. "Get him!" Victor roared, his voice hoarse with fury, cutting through the renewed chaos of his men's shouts and the continued groaning of the collapsing structure. I could hear their heavy boots pounding behind me, closer now. They knew I was heading for the main thoroughfare, the only way out of this industrial wasteland. But I had a different plan. I swerved sharply, veering into a narrow, unlit corridor, a forgotten service tunnel I'd noticed on the old schematics. It was a risk, a blind alley perhaps, but it was also dark, cramped, and likely unknown to them. The air grew thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. I fumbled along the wall, my fingers brushing against cold, slimy pipes. The sounds of the chase grew fainter, swallowed by the oppressive silence of the tunnel. For a moment, I allowed myself a flicker of hope. Had I lost them? Then a faint light flickered at the far end of the tunnel. Not an exit. A figure. Tall, imposing, silhouetted against a weak, distant glow. Victor. He must have anticipated my move, or perhaps he knew this place better than I thought. He was blocking my only way forward. He raised his gun again, the metallic click echoing eerily in the confined space. "It ends here, Michael," he said, his voice calm, almost conversational, a chilling contrast to the gun in his hand. "You should have just let it go. Let the past stay buried." "The past won't stay buried when it's still alive in my nightmares," I retorted, my voice trembling, but I forced strength into it. Emily deserved justice, and I deserved the truth. Victor scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. "Justice? The world doesn't care about justice, Michael. Cares about convenience. And Emily's death was very convenient for some people." "What are you talking about?" My blood ran cold. He wasn't just admitting he knew something. He was implying something far darker. "You always were so naive," he sneered, taking a step closer. "So easily manipulated by your own guilt. You actually believed it was your fault, didn't you? That you left her alone, that you caused the accident." I tripped, I dropped the keys, I turned my back for a second. I stammered, the old familiar guilt resurfacing, choking me. "The scaffolding. It just gave way." "The scaffolding didn't just give way, Michael," Victor said, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "It was made to give way. A few strategically loosened bolts, a well-timed tremor, an unfortunate accident at a construction site. Perfect." My breath hitched. The world tilted. You did this?" "I made sure it happened," he corrected. Emily was getting too close. Too close to exposing our operation, our dirty money, our connections. She was a brilliant journalist, Michael. Too brilliant for her own good. And yours, apparently. The revelation hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. Emily, my kind, brilliant Emily, hadn't died because of a tragic accident I was indirectly responsible for. She had been murdered. And I, in my grief and self-blame, had been the perfect scapegoat, believing a lie designed to protect a killer. "You let me believe it was my fault," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "You watched me drown in guilt for years. It kept you quiet, didn't it?" Victor shrugged, as if discussing the weather. "Kept you from digging. Kept you from finding out the truth. Until now." He raised the gun fully, the barrel gleaming malevolently. "But now you know. And now you die." My mind, usually clouded by grief, was suddenly crystal clear. The weight of years of guilt lifted, replaced by a searing pure rage. Emily's death wasn't an accident, and my fault wasn't in being negligent but in being blind. "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I won't die. Not until everyone knows." As if on cue, a faint siren wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Victor's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing his face. He hadn't accounted for this. "What have you done?" he hissed. "I didn't come here alone," I lied, though I hoped it wasn't a lie. I had sent that anonymous tip to Detective Miller hours ago, a desperate Hail Mary pass. I had given him the coordinates, the name Victor Thorne, and a cryptic message about evidence of a cold case murder hidden in plain sight. I prayed he'd taken it seriously. The siren was unmistakable now, closer, accompanied by the distinct sound of several vehicles approaching rapidly. Victor cursed under his breath, his eyes darting between me and the tunnel entrance behind him. He was trapped. But Victor Thorne was a cornered animal, and cornered animals are the most dangerous. He wouldn't go down without a fight. He lunged, not to shoot, but to tackle me, to silence me permanently before the police arrived. I was expecting it. Years of living with the shadow of Emily's death had taught me to anticipate danger, to react. I sidestepped, letting his momentum carry him past me, then slammed my shoulder into his back, sending him stumbling into the slimy tunnel wall. The gun clattered from his grasp, sliding across the damp concrete floor. We grappled in the near darkness, a brutal, desperate struggle. His hands clamped around my throat, his strength surprising. I fought back with everything I had, fueled by the memory of Emily, by the years of stolen peace. I kicked, I clawed, I bit. I felt a sharp pain as his elbow connected with my jaw, but I didn't let go. My fingers closed around something cold and hard on the floor. The gun. I scrabbled for it, my heart pounding. Victor saw my intent, his eyes widening in panic. He lunged for it too. Our hands collided over the cold metal. A shot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space, echoing off the walls. Then silence. The tunnel filled with the sound of approaching footsteps, shouts, and the beam of flashlights cutting through the gloom. "Police! Drop your weapon!" a voice boomed. I slowly released my grip. The gun clattered to the floor again. My hands were shaking, covered in grime and something else, something warm and sticky. I looked down. Victor lay motionless beside me, a dark stain spreading rapidly across his chest. His eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the low ceiling of the tunnel. The gun had discharged in our struggle, and the bullet had found its mark. The man who had orchestrated Emily's death, who had allowed me to drown in false guilt, was dead. The flashlights illuminated the scene, revealing a team of police officers, led by Detective Miller, their faces grim. Miller's eyes met mine, a flicker of recognition, then understanding. "Michael," he said, his voice softer than I expected. He took in Victor's lifeless form, the gun on the floor, my disheveled, bloodied appearance. I didn't say anything, just nodded, unable to form words. The adrenaline was draining, leaving me hollow, exhausted. The truth finally out was a heavy, cold weight. They arrested Victor's remaining men, who had been caught trying to escape the collapsing warehouse. The evidence I had gathered, along with Victor's dying confession, which Miller's team had ironically recorded on body cams as they entered the tunnel, capturing the end of our struggle and Victor's last words, was enough. The pieces clicked into place. The financial irregularities Emily had been investigating, the shell corporations, the politicians Victor had on his payroll, all connected back to the construction company responsible for the faulty scaffolding. A perfect, seamless web of corruption and murder, hidden behind the facade of a tragic accident. The following months were a blur of interrogations, legal proceedings, and the slow, arduous process of healing. I was cleared of any wrongdoing in Victor's death. A clear case of self-defense. But the scars remained. The guilt over Emily's death had been a lie, a cruel manipulation. Yet, the anguish of her loss was very real. My fault, it turned out, wasn't in causing her death, but in not seeing the truth sooner, in not protecting her from the monsters lurking in the shadows. It was in my naive belief that the world was inherently just, and that accidents were always just accidents. I visited Emily's grave often. I no longer apologized for a fault that wasn't mine. Instead, I spoke to her about the truth, about how her work had finally brought down a corrupt empire, even in her death. I told her that her brilliance hadn't been in vain. The weight was gone, but the emptiness remained. The man I was before Emily's death, before the crushing guilt, was gone forever. I was a survivor, yes, but also a witness to the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of everyday life. The accidental death that was my fault was a lie, a carefully constructed illusion. My real fault was in letting that illusion define me, in allowing myself to be a pawn in a game I didn't understand. But now I understood. And understanding, I realized, was a different kind of burden. A burden of knowing how easily truth can be twisted, how easily lives can be discarded, and how long it can take for the light to finally break through the darkness. I carried that burden now, not as guilt but as a solemn promise, to always look closer, to always question, to never again accept convenient truths. The story of Emily, and of my own harrowing journey, was a testament to the fact that some truths, no matter how deeply buried, will always find a way to claw their way to the surface. And sometimes it takes a journey through hell to finally find them.